The season has wrapped. It has wrapped. We are done with these woods and all of this. Carrying on. I made it through AHS 1984. Hey guys, thanks so much for clicking on the video. This is my review for season 9, episode 9. It's AHS 1984. There were 9 episodes. This is the finale. Let's unpack this all, shall we? So look, we came all the way to present day, 2019. And there's this dude in the Uber. And I'm saying, okay, it's an Uber, and he's driving, and he gets there, and he's like, I can't go any further. My GPS won't take me any further. I don't know where this camp is that you're trying to find. I'm like, who the hell is trying to find Camp Killer? I don't get it. But so like I said, it's literally like 20 years later. It's like from 89. No, I'm sorry. It's been 30 years. Shit. It's been 30 years? Yeah, because the concert was in 89. It's been 30 years. It's been 30 years. Ooh. Okay, yeah. Yeah. So anyway, ding, 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 ding. The person in the car is Bobby. He's Bobby. And I'm like, wow, they picked the perfect one of our AHS actors to play him because he's cute, but he has this off type of thing going on. Yeah. This little off thing going on. Like you just don't look, yeah. Perfect for somebody whose father was a serial killer. He just was a perfect fit for this role. Of all the AHS actors, I was like, perfect, perfect, perfect. So he gets there. He says he's just going to hike from there. He rolls on in, got his little iPhone out and all of this stuff, and you still see everything is still up from like 1989. Like the stage and stuff is there, and you could tell there was a whole mess going on. Like that's the one thing that I didn't like, that we didn't actually get to see the actual music fest, to see what all really transpired during the music fest. So that kind of ticked me off, because we could have gone 10 episodes. We could have did an episode. Episode 9 should have actually been the actual music festival in its entirety, to see who got killed, who didn't, how it all panned out, and all of that. That should have been episode 9. And then I think 10 should have been this. But anyway, he runs into Montana. And she's like, hey, she's always the one that the greeter, because people, they look at her and they be like, oh yeah. But now she's all out of touch and out of sync, and you like, girl, oh, it's like she's still looking like the 80s. And he rolled up and she's all looking at his phone, and she's like, this is cold. What year is it? And all this. And he's like, what the hell's wrong with her? She's like, can I keep this? He's like, hell no. And ain't no service up here anyway. And they're just kind of talking. Then next thing you know, Trevor shows up. Mr. Big Dick shows up, and they're just talking. And then he basically says who he is, that he is Bobby, and he is there trying to figure out what happened with his dad. He's trying to find his dad, and she just hugged him. She hugged him, and he was like, this is really weird. This is really weird. And then they go ahead and they tell him the story. They take him to a safer place, because they're like, she's like, you need to leave here, really, because anybody here can kill you. Anybody who's here can potentially kill you. And they end up taking him to a cabin, and they're telling them all of what went on and everything. And he, of course, he's not believing them that they're ghosts and this kind of thing. And she's like, "What you got in this bag, honey?" So she's looking at the bag, and she's like, "Oh, good, a gun. Here, shoot me." And he's like, "I'm not going to shoot you." And she's like, "Here, I'll do it myself." And she blows her head off. And she falls out on the bed. He's like, "Oh my God." And then Trevor's like, "Oh, good, a knife." And he takes and slits his throat. And he's like, "Oh, it stings a little bit, and they both die." And so he's like, "Oh my God." So he goes to run out the door. And when he opens the door, they're like, "Hey, hey, hey." They're walking in the door. And he's like, "Oh my God." So they go on and continue telling him what all has actually gone on. So, remember, last we know, Trevor was alive. But what ended up happening with Trevor was that Trevor was actually turning people away. He had went out to the main road and he was turning people away. And Margaret found out. And hey, Margaret, well, first of all, the little assistant was like, "Girl, Trevor's up there turning people away or whatever." She's like, "Because the crowd looks a little thin or whatever." And she's like, "And why would he be turning people away? And how did he know what's going on? Like what the plan is?" And, old Talkbox was like, "Well, I mean, I kind of told him." She blew his head off. Blew his head off. I was like, "Hey, that Margaret is too much. Too much." And told him, said, "You are the worst assistant ever." So blew his head off. So now he's dead and he's stuck there when he should have been gone anyway. Because when he was dealing with Kajagoogoo, he should have ran. Like I told y'all that last week, boyfriend should have been gone, gone, gone. But so she goes up there, um, and she shot Trevor. She went up there and killed Trevor. So that was that. He was actually, and that's when she said, "You're going to be dead." She shot him in his head, not in his head, but she shot him like in the chest a couple times, and then she shot him in his penis. And she told him, "You're gonna die on the outside, so you'll be dead, like actually dead, and fuck you." And she went on. You know how Margaret is, and she left. And Montana got up there and she seen him, and she couldn't. There's nothing she could do because she can't leave. She can't go past the sign. He on the other side of the sign. He can't get up and get over there. And out from the woods walks Brooke. And Brooke is like, "Oh, look at this." And Montana's like, "You bitch." Oh. And she's like, "Wait a minute." So she takes, and Brooke picks him up, and she takes Trevor, is like, "Hold on, just hold on, work with me." And she took him to the line and gave him to him. And she said, "Why would you help me?" And she said, "Because I'm not like you. I'm not like you." And, I think Brooke got it Montana got it. Because she never actually did what Montana was accusing her of. And she gave him to her. She did kill her though. But she gave him to her. So then he was in there and all was forgiven. So they ended up in there together. Um, then we found out, like I said, what's going on with Ramirez, because I'm like, where's he at? Well, here, Montana tricked Ramirez, took him to a cabin, telling him that she knew where Jingles was. And when they got him in there, everybody was gathered around together. Because Jingles was over with his mother. Everybody was gathered around in there together, and we got to actually see them. They all just tore me. He was like, "Oh shit." John, they just all had knives and sticks and bats. And when I tell you, they pulverized him and just had a killing. And they showed like an overhead shot of them doing him in. It was terrible. But they did him in, honey. Tore him up. So that was that. And of course, they know that he had died once, and they did, the devil resurrected him. So they have for 30 years literally been taking turns watching him and re-killing him every time he wakes up. And that's their whole thing. So all this time they've been um doing this. And there's a lot of them because there's the people from 72, the people from 89, and then just the stray folk who have ended up there. So there's tons of them there. They just take turns. Two people will sit and they'll just kill them. Just take a little time and just kill. And it ain't always two people because Ray killed him by himself. Yeah, but they just take turns, and they had like a whole death collage. They said, "Oh, we just come up with different ways of killing him, and entertain ourselves." And they was when I tell you they were flipping this collage, they were tearing him up. Everything you could think of, they were tearing him up. I was like, y'all are they're so sick and sadistic. Tear him up. Well, so all of this is going on. And so that's where the story is. They're telling Bobby, this, that, thing, and the other. And they're like, but nobody has seen your dad at all. Like, we just have not seen him. Now, we need to, by this time, it has gotten to be like, it's getting dark. And they're like, yeah, we got to get you on out of here. You know what's going on. You know what happened. We got to get you on up out of here. Well, while that's going on, we got Chet and Birdie. Chet and Birdie are down there, and it's their turn to watch over old boy. And sure enough, we see the devil resurrected him again. And he takes a little bit longer because it's the devil that brings him back. So we see him get ready to be resurrected again. And Birdie has said to Chet, see, I know that you got a little thing. You have slept with just about everybody down here on the camp. Everybody knows about you. You are tearing up everybody, honey, the boys and the girls. And she gonna say, didn't you ever want a little something, a little older, a little mature? I said, Birdie, trying to get her some of Chet. And Chet fine. So, he was like, well, listen, I'm an equal opportunity terror upper, honey. So he was over there ready to tear Birdie up. Messed around, honey. And when they looked up, Ramirez had got up, baby. And when I tell you, he tore their asses down, honey. He tore their asses down. I said, famous last words. Don't y'all know at the camp, the counselors can't be having no sex when y'all supposed to be watching the kids, honey? Tore their asses down. I said, okay. So he done got up, got out, and now he's on the loose. And he ended up coming up there, and they were just getting ready to lead him out. They're ready to lead him out. And when Ramirez came in, naturally, he tore Montana and Trevor's ass up. He tore them up, and he was trying to get at Bobby. And they're like, run, run, run. So it's giving him a little time to run. And he was making it. He was just about to the sign, and Ramirez took a knife, baby, and threw it. He's just like a marksman, honey. He threw that knife, and it stabbed Bobby right in the back. I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. And they took the knife out of Bobby's back, and they were like, okay, it didn't kill him. Because he was far enough away that it was able to pierce him, but it didn't kill him. And he was like running, and they just basically were taking turns with Ramirez getting him back together. Like they finally got enough of them up there to get him under control and kill him because he was tearing their asses up, honey. And Bobby was able to get away. The crew actually helped him get out, and they told him, "Go to Montana." She had to come back alive, and she told him, "Go to. You want the rest of the story? Go to the asylum and ask to speak to the director," which was Donna. Donna was the director, but let me tell you, when he got up to the asylum, messed around and got up there, and his black back is bloody. He comes in, he looking all disheveled, and he's like, "I need to talk to the director." And the girl's there. She's like, "Uh-huh." Next thing you know, there's two men come out, honey. They get ready to put him in a padded room. And then he ended up seeing Donna, and he was like, "I know you. I know you." And she was like, "You worked with my dad." She was like, mm-hmm. So she ended up having him come to her office. They get down, they talk. Donna didn't tell him everything, but she told him enough. She didn't go into the whole, I got it all started and all that. She left some of that stuff out. But she gets to telling him how things actually worked out and how she became the final girl. And she was talking about all that, and um, he said, "Well, yeah, Margaret, and at the final thing, Margaret and Brooke ended up because they went down to get Margaret, so they had Margaret locked into her cabin, and they were all out there with sticks like they killed Freddy Krueger, like they had the flames. I thought they were going to set it on fire or whatever. So they were in there, and Margaret got to tussling back and forth with Donna and Brooke because they were inside. And Brooke and she had knocked her and Brooke were going at it. No, her and Donna were going at it first. And she kind of knocked Donna down, and Donna got back up, and she was running for the door, and she opened the door because she had a gun. She had a gun, and she opened the door, and she was letting them in to get her, and that let her make her escape. But that actually happened right after. See, because her and Brooke were tussling back and forth. Brooke stabbed her, and she shot Brooke, and they both fell down on the ground. So then they came in and made sure that Margaret was tore up. And they were in there tearing Margaret up, and that was that. Brooke had done crawled off into a room. They drug Margaret out. Donna ended up getting away. She was able to go. They weren't worried about Donna. Donna got away. That's how Donna ended up moving on with her life and all of this. And it's 30 years later. So that's that. And I would thought it was strange. I was like, "Oh, girl, did you, after all that went on, you even wanted to be in that same town?" Oof, I wouldn't have. But anyway, so that was that. So yeah, Margaret and Brooke basically killed each other. Donna got away from the group. Now, what they ended up calling themselves doing, that's right. Yeah. Margaret shot Brooke. She shot Brooke. Because I got it all twisted up. She shot Brooke, but she didn't get to stab. Brooke didn't get to stab her. What they ended up doing is they got Margaret, and they all took Margaret up to this wood chipper. That's what they did. And they literally cut her body into pieces and threw her body parts into the chipper, and the chipper was shooting the stuff over the property line. So her body parts were like shredded up and thrown out to where she's just going to be dead. And They said everything, chopped everything up, and her head was the last thing to go. And they said the mind still has like 10 seconds or something that it still will be working even after you like chop the head off or whatever. Well, the machine kind of stalled, but they thought it was all, everything was all good. Um, and that was that, and it shot it over there, and they were like, okay, cool, no problem, everything's done. And I said they were just too inventive with their mess, and yeah, they shot her little body parts over there. Anyway, so that was that. Donna got away. Um, in the conversation between Donna and Bobby, Bobby tells her, "Thank you so much for the checks that you sent me every month." He said, because his aunt, he was staying with the aunt, and the aunt actually died. She told him some stuff, but she didn't tell him everything about his dad. And the checks, he was getting checks all the time. And he said, "Thank you for the checks and everything." And Donald was like, "Baby, I ain't sent you no checks, son. I ain't sent you shit." And so he said, "Well, if you didn't send me checks, somebody else was sending me checks. Maybe you're not the final girl." So 30 years done went by. All this time she's been thinking she's the final girl. So him and her go and trace the checks that he would get to the post office that they came from. It's a little town not too far from there, but it's a little town. They go and they find the checks, follow everything back. Come to find out they followed the mailman to this house and all of this. They wrote a letter and everything, and then they're like sending, they're doing whatever with this check. They trace it back, go to this house, knock on the door, and baby, who opens the door? Brooke. Brooke opens the door. And it was like, oh my gosh. So actually, Brooke and Donna were the final girls, okay? So says, okay, cool. So get in there, found out Brooke done married a doctor, had two kids, doing real well for herself. Said, she said, "I used to try to pick up the phone to call." She said, "Now I've called you a couple times and I just couldn't say anything when you answered the phone. Then eventually I just stopped calling, and then I was eventually able to kind of forget about you. And I'm so sorry that I did that to you or whatever." And she was the one that was sending the checks to Bobby so he could live good. So that was crazy. And they said, "Well, how'd you get out?" And this is what she told them. When they took her out of the house, Ray found her on the floor, and she wasn't dead. Ray drug her. He carried her to the entrance. Carried her to the entrance and said if she had to die, she wasn't going to die in there. He wanted her to have a shot. He carried her to the entrance, and he got her, helped her out. She left out of the entrance. He's like, "Go for help." She couldn't. She still lost too much blood. She fell out. But the good thing is she's going to die. Well, she could have died in there with him, but they'd have been still trying to kill her all that time. But she died, was going down the outside. He ran back in and used the phone, the pay phone, and had somebody call. And call if somebody came and got her and they saved her. And that was that. So, like I said, she apologized and all of that. So they leave out of the house, and she's like, "Okay, so where you want me to drive you to? Where you gonna head to back? You heading back to Alaska or whatever?" And he's like, "No, I still gotta get answers." And I'm like, "What the hell?" He goes, he's like, says bye to Donna, and he's on his way back down. He gonna hike on back over to the camp. He going back to the camp. I was like, okay, see, no, mm-mm, mm-mm, mm-mm. See, because you done did too much. You done escaped. They can't get out. None of them can get out to get to you. Just leave it alone. Mm-mm, mm-mm. He going back to the camp. I said, see, you crazy like your daddy. He ends up going back to the camp, And as soon as he walks past the entranceway, no sooner than he walks past the entranceway, guess who he runs into? Margaret. And Margaret is like, mm-mm. Goes up there. She's talking about, oh, well, come on. I know where your dad is. She says, he said, you been here all this time? And she said, yeah, if they put you in the blender and all of that. She said, no, because she said it stalled and I died before my mind actually died. Her head was still in there. So she said, I ended up coming back to life and I've been hiding all this time. So I haven't seen him, but me and your dad have a special connection. I'll take you to him. And he trusts her. Does he trust her? And I don't know why. They get to walking, and then the next thing you know, she's getting ready to kill him. She literally got a knife getting ready to stab Bobby. And honey, it didn't even go down because right before she could do it, honey, she looked up there, honey, and Jingles jumped from out of the bushes, baby, and gave her and tore her ass up and said, I know you didn't think I was going to let you get my boy, honey. I didn't let you get nobody, honey. And when he seen him and all of that, he ends up, you know, embracing him and hugging him and all of this, and they're having this little kumbaya, and I'm like, she's gonna come back to life. Sure enough, she done popped back up, child, and right when she's getting ready to try, she goes and she kills Jingles. Now Bobby running, you ended up running back into the camp. I'm like, oh my God. And when he goes to running, baby, guess who appears this time, honey? In between him and Miss Margaret, honey. Grandma in the white dress and told her, leave him alone, honey. And you know, don't nobody mess with the grandmother, honey. She told Margaret, she said, girl, I said leave him alone, honey. And she went over there, baby, and then the group showed up, baby, and they told the group, Grandma told the group, honey, get her. Baby, they got Margaret, honey. You know they was just waiting. Baby, they got her ass, honey, and they gonna do her just like they doing old boy, honey, and keep killing her ass every couple days, honey. I said, and that was basically that's where it ended up. Mr. Jingles, his mom, and little Bobby all walked Bobby to the fence to the entrance, and you know they let him out the camp and they waved. Shout out little Bobby was just waving at him. I said, Lord have mercy, and that's where it ended. You know what? It ended like like an old corny horror movie, but it was a happy ending and it was cool. And he finally was able to just leave it alone and go ahead and walk away. I did. I liked the ending. I did like the ending because it was corny and it was the '80s, and you know in the '80s did have a happy ending, child. You know, it's just lately that don't be no happy ending, honey, where everybody's ass still be dead, honey, and everything. But it was something, honey. I was glad to see Grandma at the end, honey, and she told him, leave him alone, honey. I said, go ahead, Margaret, talk some shit to Granny. Granny ain't for it. Told him, get her, honey. Take her away. They tore her ass up. Anyway, so that's it. That was 1984 AHS. I am so glad that I actually did sit back and actually watch this because it did turn out to be a thing where it was less of the things that I can't stand about slasher films. And, I mean, they slashed now. Don't get me wrong, they slashed some people and tore some people's ass up. And it was a lot of cutting, a whole lot of cutting. But it did actually turn out to be the battle of good and evil, which you know is my whole thing. It's my driving force. I love the battle of good and evil, and that's always AHS is the battle of good and evil. So I enjoyed it. You all tell me in the comments, what did you all think of AHS 1984? And listen, I hear that it's going to be coven like around these parts very soon. So I'm here for that. I'll see you all next season.